All right. So we're going to talk about how to sell without selling. And if you could just leave your questions to the end, that would be best. Just so I don't lose the train of thought here. Okay. But anyway, so I was thinking about what would I talk about, and I realized that our biggest challenge is, we have something that we really want to sell, and then we go out in the marketplace, and now we have to start selling it. I remember one time I put this magazine together. I was 25 years old. It was my very first business, really, formal business, and I started this magazine. So I made up the mock-up, and that took about 2 months to make up the mock-up of the magazine. Now I had to go out and sell advertising. And I remember that first day, I thought, okay, I'm going out now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to knock on doors, basically retailers. And I literally felt I was going to throw up. Like I'd never done anything like that before. And I was like scared, like, oh my God, they're going to, slam the door on me. And fortunately, I kept going, and it was tough the first couple of days, but eventually the whole thing worked out, and I sold lots of advertising. I got over my initial fear, but that was really my first time I'd ever really done door to door selling. Okay, so for about 10 years, that's how I did it. I basically whatever I was doing, my business I have now, I was basically knocking on doors with making phone calls or sending out letters or something. I was just pushing myself out there. And I was young, and in those days, it was actually not as it was actually okay maybe to do it that way. But I found that it started getting harder and harder, and I started thinking about, is there another way to go about selling? Is there a way to sell things without having to be the salesperson? Okay. And one of the things that really started to notice was that as time went on, especially when new technology came out, like just even voicemail, actually. Voicemail came out, because it used to be I could make a bunch of phone calls to people, and people would pick up the phone. I could call a business and someone would pick up the phone. So I'd actually get a chance at least to say, hey, can I tell you what I got, right? But then I started getting voicemail, right? And I've got email came out. Oh, great, I'll send out emails. And then people stopped responding to emails. And all of these different things became, harder. And I started thinking, why is that? Oh, because people have gone into a sales pitch bunker. And and I realized, oh, I'm in a sales pitch bunker. If somebody tries to sell me something, I got my little bunker here because I'm going, okay, I got voicemail, I can block them out. Email, I don't have to respond to. If they knock on my door at home, I just ignore them, right? Or I just say, no, I don't want to talk to you. So I've got into my bunker because there were so many people trying to sell me something that it was just got to the point where I said, look, I just got to stop even talking to salespeople. I go to Mexico every winter, and I'm sure you've had the experience. Maybe you've been down there or anywhere really, and all these people, you're lying on the beach, and all these people, like every 5 minutes, somebody's coming by to try to sell you something, right? And you're going, like, I don't even look up. I go, no, 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 I don't even want to see it, right? And I feel bad for them, but there's just like I can't talk to 100 salespeople an hour and buy. Like one guy was trying to sell me curtains on the beach. I'm going, I don't really think I'm in the market right now to buy curtains, frankly. But anyway, but I saw I'm in this bunker, right? So this is what's going on. We're all trying to get to people, and they've all gone into the bunker. That's just the reality of it. And irony is, there's all this technology to do marketing. So we think that's great. I can send out all this marketing. But then there's all this other technology to block that marketing. So people have gone into their bunker, right? And the trick is that how do I lure them out of the bunker, right? How do I get them to come out? So if you act like a salesperson, then they're just going to stay in their bunker. Okay, so that's the first big problem that we all have right now, and we're in a delusion too, because think about how you treat salespeople, right? And then you go, if they call me, I don't even respond to them, right? But then you go out and call out to your prospects, and they don't respond to you. You go, hey, what's going on? Why won't they call me back? It's because, well, they're just treating you the way you treat other salespeople. So we just have to realize that that's just the lay of the land right now. And that creates the issue. Like maybe traditional sales isn't working very well. Now, the other problem is that acting like a salesperson could actually undermine your reputation. Okay? So it might have been back in the day that we thought of salespeople as being an honorable thing. I still do, actually, quite honestly. But the reputation of salespeople isn't very high, right? And so imagine if you're Joe the lawyer, or no, imagine you're in your office or your home, and there's a knock on the door, and you open it, and there's this guy there. Say, "Hi, I'm Joe the lawyer, and I'm in the neighborhood," or and I want to tell you I have a lawyer, and I'm marketing my stuff, and I want to tell you that, if you need any legal help, I'm here to help you. And on one hand, you could say, well, that's very admirable of Joe the lawyer. He's being dynamic and proactive, and he's out there knocking on doors and so on. But if you think about it, what do you think of Joe the lawyer? Like, you go, probably not a very good lawyer, because obviously he needs clients, and if he doesn't have clients, he must not be a very good lawyer. So he's undermined his reputation by acting like a salesperson. So we don't always think that way about ourselves, because we think, well, I got something great to sell, and I'm here out here. Why would anybody think badly of me? But if they see you as a salesperson, they can't really see who you are, which is as someone who's an expert. They can't see those two things at the same time. Okay? So they can't see you as a salesperson and as an expert, or even someone that cares about them at the same time. So what would happen though if somebody came by and said, hey, Joe is having an event at his office nearby on Friday at lunchtime. You can come and have lunch, and then he's going to give a presentation about 10 legal pitfalls you don't want to fall into. And you go, okay, well, it sounds like maybe I'll just go for the lunch, right? So you go there, and there's about 50 people in there, and Joe's up on a stage, and Joe's giving a presentation about those 10 pitfalls, and you're listening to him, and you realize, oh, Joe's got a lot. He knows a lot, right? I never thought of those things before, and boy, those are really concerning. And then he starts telling, but this is how you avoid those pitfalls, right? And then you go, okay, Joe's like a real expert, right? So then it's at the end, he says, and I can do a 1 hour free starter session with you if you want, just to help you protect yourself from those pitfalls. Just have to come up and give me your business card or your name or something. So at the end, about 30 of people go up there, and they're all crowding at the front trying to get an appointment with Joe. And then you go, well, maybe I should get an appointment too. What if I can get in there? And now what do you think of Joe? Well, you think he's an expert, in demand, like a success. And that's a completely different opinion that you have of Joe the lawyer. And what he did was that he was the same guy, okay? But what he did was he was selling without selling. And, if we want to keep it even simpler, he was doing marketing as opposed to sales. So sales is really knocking on doors, okay, in any way that might look like. And marketing is about getting people to come to you. So what Joe did when he did that event, and at the end he said, I have the free starter session, everyone came up to him. So now that creates a different kind of relationship right there. So what you want is your prospects to come to you. Now, it doesn't mean you don't do anything. As a matter of fact, you do quite a bit to get that to happen. But you want the prospect to come to you. And then the relationship from then on will be a completely different relationship than if you had come to them first. Okay? So even if you had like a client for 10 years, if you were the one that came to them first, it would be a different relationship than if they had come to you first. And that's what you want. So at a certain point in my business, I just got so fed up with sales. It's not really working very well anyway because of the sales pitch bunker and so on. I don't want to be Joe the lawyer. I got to do something else. Okay? I got to figure out another way to do it. And that's about 30 years ago. Okay? And ever since then, I've never done any sales ever since then. And we've had like 10,000 prospects at least. Okay? And 5,000 clients over 30 years. So, and none of them did we ever knock on the door, did we ever do a sales pitch to them. Always was figuring out, how can I get people to come to me? Okay? So the nice thing is when they do come to me, they're coming to me willingly, right? I'm not bugging them or anything. So that feels good. It's a much nicer way to live your life, actually. Because if you're constantly, I got to go selling, it's just, it's hard, right? So I'm going to give you a process here to think about how you could go about it. Now, this is advanced, okay? It's like sales is basic. Sales is like playing checkers. And you can play checkers. That's a pretty easy game to learn. Problem is everyone else can learn that game. And, so that's an easy game to play, right? At least learn. This is more like playing chess. So it's like a number of moves we're going to make, right? So they're going to make a move, another move, and checkmate. Okay? And your opponent, if you want to think of the prospect as an opponent, not really, but think of it that way, person on the other side of the table, they're not seeing it. Like, they don't know what you're up to, but in the end of the day, they're really coming to you so you're playing chess. So it's more advanced, right? I'm not a great chess player, frankly. Okay, so I'm not trying to, but so it's not as hard as chess, but it's definitely like that. Okay, so the first thing is you got to have a big idea, and this is why I call my company the Big Idea Company. So no matter what you do, if you learn how to play chess and you figure out how to get people to come to you, if you don't have a big idea, then it's not really going to work. Okay, so a big idea means when I'm going to go out in the marketplace, I better be very clear. I got something new, better, and different that takes everything to a much higher level that they can only get from me. Okay, so what is that? What do you got? And don't kid yourself. So if you think, I got this special thing, and I've had people tell me that, and I go, well, let's go on the Google and just see. Okay, so I go on there and type in what they've got, and I go, okay, that's not that original. Okay, so let's just take it up a notch and say, how can I make this really exceptional? What I've got. Okay, this is what I want to start with. It's like I've got to have something, a big idea. So I'll just say that again: new, better, and different. It takes everything to a much higher level that people can only get from you. Okay. Now it doesn't mean that you have to reinvent the wheel here. It just means you have to take whatever you've got and add like 5 or 10% to it, some new ingredients to make it special. Okay, that's what you have to do. Okay. So now that you have your big idea, the next thing is you don't want to be a salesperson. You want to be a teacher. All right. So the best way to sell is to teach. But make sales without selling is to teach. Okay. Because that does two things. One is it educates people about what's really special about your big idea. And two, it positions you as an expert. Okay. And if you deliver it in a proper way, then they also feel like you care about them because you're taking the time to educate them. And this is where you want to be. You want to be a teacher. Now, so this is why, for me, it was like, okay, how do I do that? Well, first thing I ever did in that regard is I did a couple of presentations about internet marketing, very short ones, to a couple of small groups, right? And then I wrote a little booklet. It was like 20 pages long about internet marketing. And then I ramped that up and wrote, a couple articles, and then I wrote a book. And then when I wrote the book, people started asking me to come and be a speaker and do keynote speaking. So I started doing keynote speaking. And then from that point on, I go, I'm never going to sell again. I'm going to do it this way because I was getting like 10, 20 times more prospects, way better prospects, a lot faster, a lot easier, and they were coming to me. I got that book out, and then IBM called me and said, we read your book, we want you to help us. And that was a $50,000 contract, right? And I didn't have to do anything. They just said, we want to hire you. We've read your book. I said, how much is it? I said, $50,000, and they paid me, and I did the work. And so they came to me. They called me, right? So once that starts happening, you go, I got to do these things first. Be a teacher. Behave as a teacher, okay? Now, people struggle with that because they go, well, who am I to be a teacher? I don't know anything. And I go, I've never done that. And I go, well, no, but you do have lots You've got a tremendous amount of experience. You've got all this advice you're giving people. Just package that up as you're teaching and do that. And so, a lot more and more people are starting to see that this is a better way to do it. But still, 99% of people out there, like go on LinkedIn, they're just posting stuff about themselves and their product, and who cares? But then there's the ones that put stuff out that's useful and interesting. Well, then position them nicely, and now at least you're engaging with them, and you don't think they're a salesperson. So that's the first step, or second step. The next thing is you have to differentiate yourself from everybody else, but you also have to differentiate yourself from who people think you are. Okay? So if you're in a particular industry or whatever, which you are, they're probably going to assume that you're selling hot dogs, okay? Which means that you're selling the same thing as everybody else. They're just going to assume that, okay? So if you're a lawyer, you're doing what lawyers do. If you're a marketing guy, you do what marketing people do. If you're a financial advisor, you're doing what every financial advisor is doing. That's what they assume, okay? So that's your hot dog. That's your commodity, right? So what you want to tell them is that you have two levels, basic, which is the hot dog, and you have a more advanced level, which is your gourmet meal. Okay? And they say, well, okay, I understand what the basic is, but what's the gourmet meal? And you say, well, that's my special thing that takes everything to a much higher level that you can only get from me. That's my big idea, okay? And it's a gourmet thing. It's advanced. So when you preface it that way, I have basic and advanced, anything you tell them about the advanced, they're going to already feel that it's advanced. They're going to go, wow, this is really advanced. And I would rather have the advanced thing than the basic thing. And what you say is, well, you can get the basic from lots of other companies. And what you're doing there is you're framing all the competition as basic, but you're not saying anything nasty about them because you're including yourself in that. Like, I sell the basic too, and they have the basic. That's just the fact. Okay, so it's not a negative thing. It's just true. And then you say, and then I also have this advanced thing that you can only get from me. Okay, so you don't have the best advanced thing. You have the only advanced thing, which is really what you want to be. You want to be exceptional. You don't want to be the best in a marketplace. You want to be one unique, exceptional, but not just not hot dogs and hamburgers, but hot dog gourmet meal. Okay, gourmet restaurant. So this also starts to help you think about, well, what's my big idea? Well, if your big idea needs to be something advanced, it needs to be something gourmet, it needs to be something premium, otherwise it's not worth it. Okay? So, because if you want to make this sale, you want to sell something premium, right? And it doesn't mean you're ripping people off or anything, believe me. You're actually providing even more value per dollar for the advanced premium thing than you are for the hot dog, frankly. Because God knows we don't know what's in that hot dog, right? I love hot dogs, but every time you eat one, it's like, what's in that thing? Right. Okay. All right. So then the next thing is that you need to provide free value to get the relationship started. All right. So this is the key one right here, I think. This is the winner. Okay. Because this completely changed my business. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am now without that. So at first, I created my big idea program, right? And then I would tell people, we'd have the conversation. I'd say, well, if you go into our program, it costs this much, then we'll come up with your big idea. Okay? And they'd go, I don't know. What's a big idea? I don't really get it. I don't know. I can't really get my head around that. But I'd spend like an hour trying to convince them of this, and it wouldn't work. And I go, And I thought, you know what? I might as well spend that hour and just give them a big idea. Like, it's the same time, and and that's actually easier, and is what I do well. So I said, okay, spend the hour with me, and I will give you a big idea. All right? I will come up with a big idea with you. So that's what we did. And so I'd go to a talk or whatever, and I'd say, if you want to have the hour, I'm going to help you come up with a big idea. Now, if somebody doesn't want that, I go, well, I can't, there's not much I can do, okay? They would never want a big idea then. But they go, yeah, okay. So we have the hour, and I do my best to come up with a big idea with them. Might just be the first, prototype or whatever. But they kind of get into it, right? And they go, oh, wow, this is exciting. I got a big idea now. And then I say, well, if you want to work on it with me, then you can be in my program. So that's the next part of the story. But the fact is, because I do it this way, I get so many people that want to have that meeting with me, right? Which is the whole battle right there. Like, the more of those free value starter sessions I do, the more clients I'm going to get. That's all there is to it. It's a numbers game, right? So you want to completely be overwhelmed, really, with prospects. And if you do it this way, you will be. Like you want to have more prospects than you can ever handle, which sounds like a wishful thinking, but that's actually what you want to do. You want to have more prospects than you could ever handle, because that way it puts you in a good position, right? If you don't have very many prospects, then, well, that's not a good way to sleep at night, but it's not going to get you where you want to get to. So all of this is to fill the prospect box with lots of people by giving them something free. So it's like a piece of chocolate from a box of chocolate. So you have your box of chocolates, whatever you're selling, and the piece of chocolate is a piece of that. And you just give them one. You don't give them like 6, because then they'll just be full of chocolate and won't want to buy the box. But you give them enough that they go, that's really tasty. I want some more. Because you know how it is with chocolate, at least for me. You have one piece, you want to have another one, right? So just enough to get them to want to have the box now, right? So what's your free piece of chocolate going to be? So the next thing is you want to start a lineup. Okay? And this is good. So you want people to know, okay, there's lots of people lined up to do my free thing right now, to get into my program or whatever. Lots of people lined up to do it, and we decide who gets in. So we're like the bouncer at the front of a nightclub or something. We decide who's going to get in to the nightclub. So here's what really my favorite part of this whole thing. No, is what people, you're talking to a prospect or something, and they're saying, well, I don't know, it sounds like a lot of time, it sounds like a lot of effort, it sounds like a lot of money. And you go, well, you know what? It actually is a lot of time. It is a lot of effort, and it is a lot of money. But that's because we want to do it properly. And what we realize is it's not for everyone, because not everyone's willing to do that in order to get to the benefit of it. So it's okay. We don't take everyone in our program. You have to qualify to be in it. Now you're being a marketer. This is why it's my favorite thing, because as soon as you start being that way, then you are a marketer. They want in, and you're going to say, well, I don't know. Maybe. And it's not about being arrogant. It's not even about being tricky. It's actually true, isn't it? Like, you don't want everybody in it. And you should be picky. But you can always say, listen, to be in the advanced, you got to qualify. But if you want to do the basic, we can do that with anybody. That's fine. And they go, well, I don't want to be anybody. I want to do the advanced, right? So this is why this is idea of having a lineup. Now, I learned this. This whole thing really worked really well. I was working. I'll talk about how I sold lobsters in a minute, but I was working in that restaurant. Then I started this magazine, which is like an entertainment magazine. And then I started getting some clients to help them with marketing. Like one of my advertisers said, well, I'm advertising, but maybe you could help me with my marketing. I said, sure. I said, what's your problem? He said, well, I've got this restaurant, and I spent $3 million getting it open, but I haven't got any customers. How do I get customers? I said, well, you don't have any customers because you don't have any customers. That's people walk by a restaurant, see nobody in there, they don't go in. They figure it's not a very good place, right? So we got to fill the place up. So I said, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to do the free value, and we're going to do the lineup. So what we did was we sent out flyers in the whole neighborhood. They come in and have a free meal, And he said, I'm giving away a free meal. He said, yeah, because I said, otherwise, that's your advertising cost. Just get people in here. They had to pay for their drinks, but to get the free meal. So that, believe me, a lot of people showed up for that, right? And then we did it at a very specific time. So then I said, now we're going to create a lineup. So people have to wait to get in to the restaurant. We'll have a lineup. We'll have somebody at the door. And then what happened, of course, is people are walking by and they see a lineup. They get in it. Like, it's crazy. There's a restaurant right beside, there's nobody in it. And then ours had a lineup. People go, I'll get in the lineup rather than go in this empty restaurant beside there. That's how human nature is, right? So now we had people that were lined up that didn't even have the free ticket. And then from then on, the place just took off. And that became, that restaurant took off so much it actually became a chain. And I'll tell you about that later. But it became a whole chain across Canada, ultimately. Or it would have gone bankrupt. So I think people that work at that place don't realize that was actually what saved that place. So the lineup, I love it. Now, when you have that starter session, there right away you could muck it up. Because then you go, okay, I got it now. I'm going to do my sales pitch now. Then I'm going to do a proposal for them. We go, no sales pitch, no proposal. So that's good. We get rid of that, right? The proposal. You don't have to do that anymore. So we're going to use coaching techniques instead. Okay. So I remember when I figured this one out, I had been doing presentations to companies and then doing proposals and trying to get a client, right? And I'd been doing that for years. And it was like, during the presentation, it was like they were just like firing all these questions at me and why should we work with you and all that. It was like really, really unpleasant. And then I would do the proposal, like, yeah, do a proposal for it. And then I would send them, they wouldn't even look at it. And I'd call them, they wouldn't look at it. And then I'd call them a third time and they said, well, we picked someone else. I'm going, brother. We get the odd one, but I go, this is really annoying. Is there another way of doing it? So then once I had this, like, finally so annoyed, I go, next one I went to, they said, well, you can do your presentation. I said, no, I'm going to do a workshop. I'm going to do a little workshop here. And what do you mean by that? I said, well, I'm going to ask you questions. I said, what's your number one business goal? And they all went, oh, I don't know. I said, well, let's figure that out then. Okay. And I said, now what's your marketing goal? Well, I don't know. Let's figure that out then. Well, what do you need to do to achieve your marketing goal? Well, I don't know. Well, I figured that out. So at the end of it, I said, that's an hour. You've got your business goal, your marketing goal, and a plan for your marketing. Did you get some value out of that? Well, yeah. I said, now if you want us to help you implement that, you can go on our program. It costs this much. Do you want to do it or not? Yes or no? And they said yes. And I went, I'm never going to do it any differently ever again. This is how we do it. Okay? Because they got a lot of value out of that, as opposed to me presenting myself like a salesperson. So this coaching methodology is what we've learned to do. And those of you that have been in my program, like we create these scorecards you do. And we have these worksheets like vision questions. And it all is this process, I have this one client, Andy Wimberly, and he has this starter session. He's a financial advisor. So he says to people, listen, I have this starter session. It's called Discovery Session. And I'm going to ask you the 3 most important questions you've ever been asked in your life. And they said, what are the questions? And I said, well, you got to come to the session to hear them. So they come and he says, well, he asks them these 3 questions. He might ask them something like, if you were to drop dead right now, what would actually happen? Spell it out for me. What would happen to your business and your family? How would they deal with that? And they would realize, oh my God, it would be a disaster for them. Okay. Good question? Yeah, right. Okay. So then he asks them a couple other ones. And they go, how was that? And so, well, that was very enlightening. Those questions were good. He says, well, now I have a program. It's $10,000. And there's 97 other questions. So it's 100 altogether. And we'll work through those if you go in the program. And they would sign up. So he had last time I talked to him, he had 70 members paying $10,000 a year. And he said, and I'm just asking them questions. They're the ones coming up with the answers. And I said, that's the thing. I'm saying. So we think we have to have all the answers, but the coaching is really about asking questions. So having this coaching thing. And one of my clients, Rick Scruggs, he has this thing called a time to think session. So in Virginia, he has this office, it's Time to Think Center. And there's this nice quiet room, and he takes the prospect in there and he starts coaching them through a process called Abundant Business Coaching Process. And by the end of that Time to Think session, they go, well, I got to do more of this. So they sign up for his program. Was there any selling there? No, right? It just made total sense. People basically were selling themselves on it. You see? So you're doing coaching. So the next thing is, he had the basic and the advanced, right? So that was at the beginning, just simple. There's the hot dog, the gourmet meal. Okay, so now we've kind of got them. They've had an appetizer of the gourmet appetizer with this starter part, and then and then you say, now, if you want to go forward, we have these 3 levels. We have level 1, level 2, and level 3. Now, this is also the scorecard is the number one favorite thing people get from my program. And this is the second one. Okay. They go, I would never do it any differently now. Okay. So we have level 1, level 2, level 3. Which one would you like to do? So it isn't really a question about do you want to do it or not. It's which level do you want to do? Okay. So that's right there. They go, okay, I'm choosing now. Okay. And they're going to go for the middle one, typically. 60% of the time. So it's 20% small, 60% middle, and 20% 20% supersize. Okay, just like in the theater buying a drink. That's what it is. 20%, 60%, 20%. But here's the cool thing: is 80% of the people are taking the regular middle one or the supersize one. So this is a way to increase your prices now, because you can keep your basic one, the level 1, be the price you usually charge for something, but the other two can be more, like twice and then 10 times more again. And people are going to go for one in the middle or even bigger, and they're going to be happy to do it because they want to get those higher level things, you see. So they're choosing too, right? You're not selling anything. You're just saying, here, which one do you want to have? And most people will go to the middle. You know, my kind of one of my favorite stories about this, a client of mine had steak restaurants in Wisconsin. And he said, well, how would I do this? And I said, okay, well, you're going to have $8 drinks, $25 drinks, and a $600 drink. He says, a $600 drink? What are you talking about? I said, yeah. I said, you got to have that. Don't expect anyone to buy it. It's just put it out there because it'll get more people to buy the $25 drink. Which, of course, exactly what happened. More people were buying the $25 drink. But then one night, a guy came in and bought 12 $600 drinks for his friends. Like, he probably made money on Bitcoin or something, right? Easy come, easy go. And so he bought that. And my client called me. He said, I can't believe it. They bought, I said, well, I believe it. I said, what I also know is if you don't have the $600 drink, no one will ever buy it. So you might as well have it. But you don't have to worry. It's not like you're really trying to sell that, so you can just throw that out there. But it will make people buy the middle one more. But almost every client I have has eventually sold their $600 drink to almost everybody. So what this does, it forces you to think about it. So what are those levels? And it's also good because it does force you to think about, well, if I put more ingredients, better ingredients in it, maybe, what would I have to put in the $600 drink or whatever to make it worth that to people? What goes in there? So this forces you to be a value creator. Because if you really want to get people to come to you and sell without selling, be a value creator. Just keep creating value, right? And just keep putting them into packages and putting them out there and giving people a free version of it so they can get a feeling for it. You shouldn't have any trouble. You're going to do a lot better than all the people selling hot dogs that are just all the same, like calling the penguins, and no big idea or anything, and they're knocking on doors, and you've seen them all. Go on LinkedIn, look at your messages, and just do it for like 10 minutes and open the messages. Every one of them got a hot dog they're selling. They're a penguin. They're all the same as everybody else, and they're trying to sell you something, and you think they're like, don't bother me. So don't do that. The best advice from you to start with is don't do that, okay? Because that's just not going to be worth the trouble. They think they're God's gift to the earth or something. They got the most amazing thing, but it's like, oh, brother, no, you're not. No, you don't. Okay. Now this is my third favorite one, and also kind of the most fun, but also the toughest one. Is that what you're going to do is when you say, okay, I've got this free thing that I can do for you, and I'm willing to do that free thing. But what I want you to tell me is that at the end of the free thing, will you give me a yes or no as far as going forward and becoming a member, right? And if they don't agree to that, then forget it. But people will agree to that, all right? Now, I got this from the Sandler Sales System, so I'm gonna give them credit here. Because I read the book Sandler Sales System, which I do recommend everybody read, because it's very in line with this. A lot of this is that was a nugget I got from that. I go, okay, that is the best thing out of that book. So the yes or no policy. They pre-agree to, yeah, I will give you yes or no at the end of the free part to go into the program. All right. And so when you get to the end of the free part and you say, now you need to give me yes or no, well, they're going to have to really decide, right? Now, at that point, if they say maybe, well, they've gone against their agreement, but they often do as well. And you go, well, you know what? That's really a no. Now, you don't have to beat them over the head with it, but at least you know it is. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, it's kind of like a Canadian no, right? It's like polite. Okay. I can't say no, so I'm going to say maybe. But, I go, it's a no. Fine. I'm okay. Um, and they might be kidding themselves. But I say, well, I'll put you on my list, and and if you were going to come back, and some people do, like the odd person does. They said maybe, and they just can't do it right now, and they're fine. But they did agree to yes or no, though. You see. But what this does, of course, it just creates that moment of truth. It's like, let's just figure it out now. I've done all this for you. I've done this free thing. I got my program. You got the different levels. Yes or no. It seems fair to ask that at that point, right? If you let them have a maybe, then you're getting into the maybe world, I call it, and you got a bag of hope. All these people that said maybe to, and you got a list of prospects that said maybe, and you're thinking, oh, this is great. No, it's not. They just cut them loose, bang, get them take them off your list. They got a yes or a no, because you really want to work with people that are, at that point are going, well, okay, I'm gonna be square with you. I'm gonna say yes or no, and then the people say yes, it's all good. Right now, I had one guy, and he said to me, I told him this. He said, well, I would never work with you. This is before I did the free part. I was just having the sort of pre-conversation. And he said, I would never work with you because of this yes-no policy. He was all indignant, And I said, well, that's good. Because I said the whole point of the yes-no policy is to eliminate people who don't agree with the yes-no policy. And he was like, he didn't know what to make of that. I said, yeah, because I didn't say to him, but I thought, I go, well, he's just trying to get the free thing. He never wants to buy anything anyway, and he's the one that's trying to kind of rip me off in a way, right? Like, it's not really a rip off because I'm willing to do it. I just saying, I want to find out whether you're even remotely interested, really. So he got eliminated, and he thought I was the one who eliminated him. So that's a big part of it, okay? So you want to be the teacher, right? You want to have a big idea that you're putting out there. You're teaching people, you're giving them free value. You're being very generous with your knowledge and your time. But at a certain point, it's time for people to pay. Okay? And then, the other thing is that at that point, they need to pay, and they need to pay up front. That's another part of that policy. Is like, at this point now, because think about it, if you've done the free part, it seems fine that, at this point, you've taken the risk to spend time with them. But at this point now, they need to pay you. So you don't get paid after you do the work. You get paid before you do the work at this point, because, otherwise it's not the proper business that you do. Okay, so that's another thing. That's just another policy there. Okay, so those are this advanced strategy. So it's like I say, it's a little bit like chess. There's a number of different things to keep in mind. You got to put those elements together. But if you do it this way, you'll realize, well, this is actually easier, and better for everybody, including the prospects, including your clients. Because think of the prospects, right? They ask you to do a presentation, boring. Then they ask you to do a proposal. Well, now they got to read it, right? And and they don't really know what you're going to give them early from all that. But if we do it this way, they're saving time, they're getting value, and they can make a better decision. So everybody kind of wins here. So a lot of you have heard this story, but I'm just going to put it all in context of the making sales without selling here. Okay, so the lobster contest, which was the beginning of me being an entrepreneur, even, because up to the point I was working as a waiter at a steak restaurant when I was in college, and I never sold anybody anything, and frankly didn't ever want to. But at this steak restaurant, they had this contest to say, we want you to try to sell them a steak and a lobster. And I go, oh, now I got to sell something. Oh boy, well, how do you do that? And they said, well, just suggest to everybody when they order the steak that say, hey, you should have a lobster. So I tried that for 3 weeks. I was knocking on their door saying, hey, you want to have a lobster with your steak? And everybody said no, except 4 people. So I sold 4 lobsters. I was in last place in the contest. And I thought, okay, well, I should just do something different, maybe try something else. So I went up to this table of 20 people, and I said, well, you have 2 choices tonight. You have basic steak or you have the special, advanced special steak and lobster. What do you want? And that table of 20 people ordered the special. So I sold 20 lobsters right there, added to my tally. So I just kept doing that. I sold 1,400 lobsters and won the contest. The second waiter sold 90 lobsters. And all the other waiters were just doing sales, and they never changed their strategy. They just kept trying to say, hey, do you want to have a lobster? You want to have a lobster? You want to have a lobster? They were selling. I wasn't selling. I was just giving them information. I packaged it up differently. Now, I didn't have the free value part and all that, but I did have this idea that the selling wasn't working. Got to try something else. So I had a big idea, right? I created the special. And that's why it worked. And it worked because, one, it was about them, right? If they ordered the basic, they would be basic. If they ordered the special, they'd be special. If they ordered the basic, their office party would be basic. If they ordered the special, their office party would be special. So I realized really was about, that's how the whole package looks like. They weren't looking at me like some pushy salesperson. They were looking at me somebody just giving them a choice. And it was about them. And they liked the idea of the special. So I thought, oh, you got to have a big idea. You give them a choice, basic and advanced special. And so really that's where it started 40 years ago, that one technique. And it was transformed my business, and also 5,000 other businesses have done the same thing, and have had a lot of success with it. So that's why I'm so passionate about talking about this. We talk about AI and things like that and all this technology, and I love that too. Okay. But you can see that technology can be a trap, okay? Because you could say, well, I'm going to use all this technology to sell my stuff. But if you're not doing these things, then it's just another way for it not to work, frankly. Go on LinkedIn. You could just do the wrong thing and it won't work. You can use Twitter, doesn't work. You can use email, doesn't work. Phone calls, doesn't work. Go to a trade show, doesn't work. Why? Because you're not doing these things. You're trying, and because you're just look like you're selling. I went to a trade show one time, and I was thought, what do I do with my booth? And I what I did was I put up a poster of a penguin, and it said, "Do you have the penguin problem?" And people came up to me and said, "What's the penguin problem?" And I said, "Well, it's when you're not differentiating yourself." And I said, "I have this free session I can do with you right now if you want. Little scorecard, and then you can have a free session in the after." And I walked away with 50 prospects from that thing. And all I had was that poster. Right beside me was AIG or whatever, the insurance company. They had this $1 million booth. They were all selling. It was like, I just sat there and people were coming to me. So if you're interested, you might want to read my book, How to Sell Lobster. I'll send you a link how to get to that in a minute. But all these ideas and many more in here in the How to Sell Lobster book. And then I wrote the sequel, Return of the Lobster. Somebody read the Lobster book, but not Return of the Lobster. There's even more ideas in there. So those are kind of fun books. And it's me and Marketing Mike having all these adventures in sales. So it's a really fun book if you haven't read it yet. And I do recommend, if you have younger people that are starting out, that you might want to get that book for them to read. Because I've had a lot of younger people, even like as young as 12, read it and get really inspired by what's in there. And they really find it funny too. So, okay, so there you go. So how to sell without selling. Like I say, I've recorded this. So I'm going to send it out afterwards, and you can watch it again and again and again if you want to. And also you could send it off to other people. I encourage you to do that to help them. And now I'll just move over now to the discussion part of our meeting. Okay.